Hello and welcome to the Legendary Ladies podcast. So this podcast is where three millennials talk about all things pop culture. And this time we're going to do like a good old fashioned top list. We're going to go full BuzzFeed on this. And we're going to count down our top five queer ships. So there
in
are a couple
television.
so I was gonna say there are a couple
Yeah.
rules for how we had did this. So one is that we decided there are so many that we can't like pick top five overall. That's crazy. So we constrained ourselves to just TV. So top five queer ships on TV. And the second, very important,
canon.
It has to be canon.
It has to be canon. You can't come to me. Thinking shipping.
You can't come to me and you can't say Cara and Lena. I'm sorry. It has to be canon. The wishful thinking ones, I will give you. Some of them are more fun than the canon ones, but
Gonna be another episode.
Yes,
it has to be canon, and they don't need to stay together. They just need to have been together.
They just need to have been together at some point.
They were a couple.
They were a couple. So we're gonna do
gay.
And they've got to be gay as hell. Before we start into our list, I have to say, I'm initially, when we were thinking of this idea, I was like, I don't know. I feel like pulling this list together is going to be difficult. Like, because I feel like I'm going to I know a couple of my tops and then what do I put in the rest? And what I found is that I had too many. I had double the amount. I had 10 at the end and I was like, uh-oh.
I had 9.
Yeah. What was your experience, Amy? Did you find it was tough to narrow them down, or?
You know, what's interesting is I was trying to do this while coming off of sleeping for 3 hours, and so I had the ones that I immediately went to, and so I had my top 3 instantly. And then I was like, ooh, who are my other ones? And that's a good ship, but it's not something that I love. So I think you guys are going to be interested to see what my choices are. I'm very curious to see what you guys think of my choices.
I'm curious if there's any men on the list, because there was just one set I really wanted to put on and it didn't happen.
I'm excited to see all of our lists, and then I think for Kat and I, after we get through our full, I think maybe we'll just speed through our honorable mentions. But yeah, I'm excited to see. I also want to see how much overlap all of our lists have, and what
our number one,
what placement.
Our number one is going to be the same.
I feel like all of
any of our other ones are going to be the same. I don't think 3 out of my 5 will be on your guys' list.
Ooh,
I know you haven't seen one of the shows that's on my list.
Okay. Okay. So I think what we're gonna start with is, I wish I had made graphics for this, but I forgot. So instead, I'm just gonna use these old graphics. We're gonna start at number 5. So 5. So Kat, let's start with you. Who is your number 5?
This is the couple no one has watched except me. The show South of Nowhere, on the N. Spencer and Ashley from South of Nowhere. This was a show when I was getting into the gay stuff that I really liked, because she was was she really keeping a secret? I don't know, but I love my secrets. I like the show because there wasn't any shows like it at the time. It was really about her queerness. It was about this character who understood that she was a lesbian, and she met this girl who was bi, and they were just kind of navigating their feelings. Had its teen Nick drama every once in a while, but the same creators of Secret World, Alex Mack. And I liked it because there was drama between the two, but for the most part, they were together pretty much the whole time. So it was also kind of nice to kind of see them together. There was definitely drama. Or one of the parents found out about it and didn't like it.
Uh-oh, twist.
This was early 2000s, but don't worry, the mom becomes cool about it after.
Was this on the N?
It was on the N. Let me see when it came out. Like I said, creators of Alex Mack, one of my favorite shows. I'm not joking. South of Nowhere was 3 seasons, and it was 2005. So they were just fun. And then they were in this movie called Girl Trash, and it was such a bad movie.
It was called Girl Trash.
Girl Trash. It's a musical about these girls in college who That's all I got for you, actually, as a musical.
I don't know what I watched.
But there was a song about her living in her fantasy world, and it's brilliant. And I haven't thought about it in a really long time until now. So.
Oh my god! That's so, what is the ship that from South of Nowhere that was your favorite?
Splashy. It's Spencer and Ashley.
Splashy.
Splashy. That's really cute.
I'm hoping that we get a lot of like really ridiculous ship names too, because that's like one of my true loves in life is like a bad ship name.
Yeah, now I gotta write down all.
One of my all-time
names.
Favorites is still, and this is not queer, I'm sorry, but like the Logan and Veronica from from Veronica Mars. They were called Love, but it was LOVE.
Oh,
Love.
cute.
Is it cute?
Interesting.
Why didn't they make it
something.
Lover?
I don't know. That's a good
Lover
point.
would have been better.
It would have been better.
Yeah, or the Castle one, Castle and Beckett was Casket,
which is terrible.
That sounds
perfect.
That's morning.
But it's a murder show,
That's
so Casket
true.
makes a
Okay.
lot of sense.
I'll go with the murder. So, Kat, what did you like about Splashly?
I chew my Cheez-Its. I like that. Again, I think it was more of the time period. They're both femme characters. That's something we didn't really see in 2005. I thought that was interesting. And honestly, like I said, I just kind of liked that the drama was kind of low. They just kind of liked each other from the first 2 episodes and are like, let's try this out. And that's kind of it. I just like there was like low stakes for the most part.
Nice. just kind of a chill vibe in this relationship.
Again, there's maybe some homophobia and someone wanting to be a musician, but other than that,
somebody did want to be a star.
Yeah,
that's amazing. Okay, well, I'm excited. Maybe one day I'll check out South of Nowhere on the N. I feel like I would actually really like it. If we get enough people writing in to tell us to watch South of Nowhere, I'll do it.
We will watch it.
I think we will.
We'll do it. Okay. Amy, I'm excited for your number 5 because you actually think that some people aren't gonna like.
I think this might be on your list, Morgan. I don't think it will be on Kat's list, but I do think it's on a lot of people's lists.
Medieval, crazy.
No, it's not at all. It's Callie in Arizona from Grey's Anatomy.
Oh,
okay. I haven't seen them.
And this one, so Calzona got together. Calzona, that is Calzona.
Okay.
Calzona got together in 2008, season 5 of Grey's Anatomy, and it was, I believe, their first canon lesbian couple on the show.
Yeah, I think it was.
And it was a very big deal for a lot of people. It was also the first time I ever remember my mom watching and being invested in a gay couple. And that was very interesting for me to observe because it wasn't at that time. It was later in the middle of their relationship where she's like, you know what? I actually kind of see, like, I can understand why it's nice for people to want to have a chance to watch these characters. Because, like, I don't know any lesbian couples, but I met one recently at my work and they remind me of them. And it started a whole conversation between my mom and I about representation in television and why that is so important. And so for me, that was a conversation starter, and I hope that it wasn't just for my family. I hope that the Calzona conversation happened with a lot of family and friends with how mainstream Grey's Anatomy was. And ultimately, a lot of shit happened with those characters, but they were, for a brief time, happy.
I think one of the nice things about Grey's Anatomy is that they treated all their characters the same, and so the queer relationships got the sort of this somewhat of the same emphasis,
amount of trauma,
and the amount of, yeah, exactly. Like
they were all in a plane crash.
Everybody was drama on that show, and so I feel like for people tuning in, like Grey's Anatomy is their favorite show, and maybe they hadn't been exposed to it that much before. They're like, well, Callie in Arizona, they've got drama too, like just like McDreamy or whatever his nickname is this week. So yeah, I thought that was like one of the the good things is like, even though, sometimes the drama got exhausting and you're like, oh my God, I can't take it anymore. They equal opportunity drama on that.
Equal opportunity. All right. So Morgan, what was your number 5?
So my number 5 is also a big one for representation, though perhaps not in a good way.
It's Lexa.
Mine is Lexa, baby. Clarke and
Lexa's
Lexa.
on my honorable mention. She didn't make the top 5.
So I will say,
how did you put them on your list?
Because
there's
a
lot of reasons. I debated this. This was my most debated spot because there were so many that I could put in there, and arguably a lot of them were better representation than this. But first off, the slow burn of their romance was so incredible, and it hadn't been something that I'd seen for queer couples on TV in the past, because usually they just like, it's like two people and they kind of look at each other and then it's like, oh, we're cute, and then they are together immediately, and there's no chemistry. There's no tension. I feel like they didn't back in the day, they didn't used to like screen at like chemistry test actors who had to be in queer relationships. So they're just like, it's cool, you're both gay, go for it. And these two had like fantastic chemistry. They were so good together. The way that the show built them up was so fantastic. They almost didn't make this list because obviously they got done dirty real bad. But I feel like this was sort of a turning point for how television started looking at queer characters and queer relationships. I feel like it was the straw that broke the camel's back for a lot of TV fans and a lot of people who looked to television for representation of queer relationships, and all they would find would be these characters who were never allowed to get together because they're both straight, or they would get together and then somebody would get a bullet because that's just how lesbian couples break up on TV. So I feel like it was a real turning point in how TV started handling those relationships, because the backlash to killing Lexa was so severe, and like the awful way that they killed her off and the disrespectful way that they sort of played around with the fandom. I feel like TV showrunners, really the good ones, like went, oh, okay, I need to really think about how we're going to deal with queer relationships in the future and how we're going to write these couples and how we're not going to constantly put them as the first ones on the chopping block when we have to kill somebody to like raise the stakes. So Clarke and Lexa, very hot couple, great chemistry, and also they kind of changed the game. So despite the controversy of the end of the relationship, I'll always have the first 2 seasons.
And I think like Morgan, you put the nail on the head, but for me it was as an adult that conversation started with so many people. Like I remember we were doing that podcast at the time. We remember we were doing
what an awkward time.
We started doing the podcast, and we started in the 3rd season. It was Dia, Jen, and I, and it was going great. And then they killed Lexa, and we tried recording another 2 episodes, and the show just kept going downhill. That we were like, you know what? We're gonna say some things that we regret, and so we stopped recording because all 3 of us are in the professional industry and we don't want to make it worse. But yeah, man, that was formulative for many individuals who were watching this show at that time.
And I'm not going to say it's like 100% better now, because obviously it's not. And obviously we've seen a lot of queer character with the downfall of the CW. We talked about this before, but there's less queer representation now, and a lot of their shows are getting canceled. But I do feel like showrunners and writers are being a little bit more thoughtful about like not just killing off queer characters like left and right in like a bloodthirsty rampage anymore after Lexa. So if this relationship did anything, it did a small bit towards representation overall. So I think that means it's time for, this is again my graphic, number 4. Kat, who is your number 4?
I was surprised by this one because I think, honestly, Morgan, you probably like the show more than I do. I do like the show, but
yeah.
I like the couple a lot, and that's Waverly and Nicole from Wynonna.
Nice.
Oh, I've never seen it.
Yeah, no, they're really good, and I think, I wanted to put them on this list because I really believe that, at least for me, the point of watching the show was them. Like, I didn't quite care about the actual Western demon. I don't know if they were demons, but Western magic side of things. But I really liked them, and I think they had really good chemistry. I also liked that it was from pretty much the beginning of the show, but there was still enough of a slow burn. I think they were good, and again, the actors had such good chemistry, and it was a big reason to watch the show.
Yeah, they were a huge draw for that show and for the fandom. Like, not that like there weren't tons of other reasons to watch that show, but let's be honest, like a lot of people were there for WayHaught.
For sure.
Amy, who is your number 4?
Okay, can you do yours first? Because I'm now debating my order.
Oh, okay.
No.
I will do my number 4. So my number 4 is I'm trying to create my little graphic. It is another show that I think is really well known for its ship and like this being a big one, which is Cosima and Delphine from Orphan Black.
Show I've never
seen.
seen.
A lot of that.
You would. I feel like you would really like it, Kat. Actually, it's like
I feel like I would too.
And so this is one of the I say this a lot, but like Tatiana Maslany is such a good actress that sometimes at like a Comic-Con interview, she would be talking to one of the cast members, and I would be like, "How does she know that person? That person's only interacted with Cosima." She is Cosima, Morgan, but I thought that this relationship was so well done, and like the chemistry was so good. I like that, you know, in the show there's the 3 different clones, and Cosima's storyline gets the exact same amount of attention as the other clone storylines. Arguably, Cosima and Delphine is the big romance in Orphan Black. There's other romances within the show, but this is really the one that kind of like was the cornerstone romance of the show and like held it down. And I think that they did such a good job of building that relationship up. There is some there's drama in it. There are fake out deaths maybe. But I feel like again, I still need to finish. I never finished the last season. I got behind, and then I was like, oh, I don't want it to end. And then I didn't finish it. But one presumes that they ended up happy together. I didn't see a huge backlash of people being mad, like killing Eve. So I assume that Delphine didn't get taken out at the last minute of the show. But yeah, I thought that they did a really good job with this relationship. So had to give it to my girl Tatiana.
All right, let's see what Amy ends up picking.
All right, Amy. All right, moment of truth. You're number 4.
Okay, I don't think you guys ever watched this show.
Okay.
It was Spartacus.
No, I mean, I think I've seen clips of it, but not enough to have any real information.
Spartacus, there is a couple, Agron and Nasir. And it was a like Spartacus is a
you didn't even try spelling that, Morgan.
I gave up.
Yeah.
Amy's number 4 is the show of Spartacus.
Spartacus. Honestly, let's be honest. It was very open about the actual sexuality part of a gay relationship, and in addition to not shying away from those aspects, the characters themselves were incredibly strong and had a really really intense draw to each other that they used to survive. This was survival, and they relied on each other to survive. And that show was known for having a lot of overt sexuality, and was known for being at some points people would call it softcore erotica kind of things. But to the point of what you were saying earlier, Morgan, about Grey's Anatomy, Spartacus was fair in everything. Mm-hmm. You saw naked everything of naked anyone at any time. And so I know how much that relationship meant, a relatively healthy gay relationship that did explore the sexual side of things for a lot of individuals who are watching that show. So I know how important that was. So that's one of the reasons it makes it onto my list. But nice. I also I thought that the characters themselves, especially Agron, is a really good character. And I thought that they didn't play it up like, oh my God, they're gay. No, that this is a story where these two characters are very much in love with each other.
I've heard that show's really good. I've seen it recommended. One of these days I will get to it. These days.
it's a little hard to watch because you know that after the first season, the main actor who plays Spartacus, he ended up getting super sick with pancreatic cancer and actually passed away. And he was filming while he was in remission, and then it got worse.
Oh, that's really
and so
sad.
they filmed a prequel because he was getting treatment and getting better, and then he declined incredibly quickly. And he passed away at age like 33.
Oh my God, that's so young.
Crazy.
And I think it was pancreatic cancer, but they recast it and kept going, and it was very clear that they did it in honor of Andy Whitfield. It was a beautiful show. It also has a very unique language that if you enjoy Shakespeare, you will enjoy the way that the show is written. You guys will be like, why do they talk like this? And it's a very unique verse and rhythm in the way that they talk. It's fascinating. I love it. It's still to this day one of my all-time favorite TV shows. Anyway, moving on.
Selling me on Spartacus. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That
also
takes us...
blood and sex.
Ooh, fancy. Spicy.
Morgan's like, thanks.
Okay. Okay. All right. That takes us to number 3. Cat.
What a graphic.
3. Special effects here are incredible.
My number 3 is another show that is not my favorite show ever, but I like them, and that's Santana and Brittany from Glee.
I was hoping you would put them on your list.
Yeah, no, I don't love the show. Not seen all of the show, but I've seen their stuff, and I watched all of the first season when it came out. Then I was like, don't I want to watch more? And I didn't. But then when the show was ending, I watched a lot of their stuff. And yeah, they also, I think, helped a lot of people more in my generation because it came out when I was in high school. And I think a lot of people connect to them. And it was really the start of kind of almost, even though it wasn't a CW show, but like that CW craze and flood of actually seeing queer representation. Glee kind of came out around the same time where we never saw these type of characters have such big arcs. And in the long run, I think they ended things well. And I think they had interesting chemistry with each other. And I think they were both very unique characters. They both individually had good voices. And sure, there are some jukebox musical aspects too. They definitely were the better part of that show.
Yeah, one of the things I liked about them is that it started out as like there were a lot of jokes on Glee, like that was just like one-line jokes that they would like never return to again. I feel like it's their relationship started out as a joke, like, oh hey, we're friends, but sometimes we make out or whatever it was, and then they actually like picked it up and were like, okay, well, what does that like actually mean for these characters instead of just having it be like a one-off joke, and then obviously they became like a big relationship within the show and like. But yeah, I like that they, they didn't just kind of throw it out there and then just like leave it. They actually followed up with that.
Same with Kurt and Blaine. Like they actually went through up and downs. And Kurt and Blaine made my honorable mentions. Yeah.
If there's gay, Glee is probably going to be mentioned.
That's true. Glee's got to be in the conversation. Mm-hmm. Okay. Amy, are you ready for your number 3 or should I do mine?
I am.
Okay. 3.
This was instantaneous. My top 3 were almost instantaneous for me.
Okay.
So my number 3 is another one that I think you might have trouble spelling. It's from Netflix's The Dragon Prince. And it's a character, Amaya and Janai.
I do know you're talking about. Then one of them's mute?
Amaya is deaf.
Okay.
So she speaks. It's actually fascinating. In the animated series, she speaks through sign language, and she often has a translator, but often does not. And so her significant other, Janai, learned sign language to be able to speak to Amaya. But they're a straight up enemies to lovers. Like they're on opposite sides of the war. One ends up capturing the other. And they're like, hey, instead of fighting, what if we broker peace? But then later on, they decide to get married. But there's a major issue that happens with a cultural difference between the two of them when Amaya has to defend something one of her people do, and Janai is forced to punishing that individual, and they have to choose whether or not they're gonna follow through those cultures or choose each other. And it's like this point where they have to decide whether or not they can actually be together, or if this cultural divide is so significant that love is not enough. And it's incredibly well done. And it is interracial. It is individuals with very, very quality representation of disabilities, and the characters, and like literally at one point, it's so cute, they're like both warriors, and so Janai goes to propose to Amaya by having a bunch of warriors jump out and like surprise her. Well, Amaya thinks she's getting attacked, so she starts to like take them all out, and Janai's like, you just took out all the people who were gonna propose to you, and like all the things, like the signs that they had, she wrecked them all, and she's like, oh, my bad. And it's just really cute. It's a really well done relationship, and it's animated, and it is a relationship that is normalized for kids. And I think it's awesome. It's just on so many levels, so wonderful for representation.
That's awesome. Yeah, I started The Dragon Prince like years ago, and then like got maybe a couple episodes in and fell off. But now I feel like I'm more motivated to go back and try to watch it, because
you have a lot of shows.
I'm gonna have such a long list of shows that I never watch. It'll be really fun. I love Amy's cat above her head. Oh, Octavia. Okay, so my number 3 has honestly already been said. So I'm just gonna go in. It's Waverly, Earp, and Nicole Haught from Wynonna Earp. It's WayHaught. So that's their ship name. When I say I love a good stupid ship name, I'm being very serious. That's half of why they're on number 3. No, they are a really fun relationship. I like that they have that like meet cute moment at the beginning of the series where they like meet each other at a bar and kind of like give each other like the up and down, like, oh, you're cute, you're cute. I feel like that's not something we see a lot with sometimes with like queer relationships. It always has to be so serious, but they have like a cute little moment. And I like that they're consistent throughout the show. They once they get together, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. There are some bumps in the road, but they don't have like the big dramatic breakup that lasts like forever, and then they're like, oh my god, are they going to get back together? They're kind of like together as a couple that like tackles their insane town and those issues together. So I really liked the Waverly and Nicole, and I love that the show Wynonna Earp like took them so seriously. They were the big couple on the show. The showrunner knew that people loved WayHaught and would like play to that and was like giving the people what they wanted. Emily Andres was obviously like very tapped into the fan community. It was obvious that they were never going to hurt either of those characters. They were never going to kill off somebody, Nicole Haught got to wear a bulletproof vest. There was no taking her out with a stray bullet at any point. And I, at the time when that Lexa stuff was really happening and popping off, it was kind of nice to just watch a show to be like, yeah, I don't think they're gonna kill her. I just think that we're fine. I think we're okay. Okay, we're getting to it. That brings us to number 2. So, Kat, who is your number 2?
Mine's Nico and Karolina from Runaways.
Oh.
Yeah, I love these characters from the comics, and I genuinely think they did a really good job at portraying them in the show.
What is
but in
name?
A way, Nico, it's Karolina in the show, but it's Carolina in my heart. I really I like that they were different enough from the comic, but also kept the heart of them. And I thought they just had really, really great chemistry. The show allowed Nico to be bisexual, or at least show her bisexuality before the comics did. They weren't, I don't know if they were together at that point, or maybe it was happening at the same time, but it was definitely like very, very close that it was revealed in the comics that Nico was even bisexual. So it might have been right after the comics. But yeah, they're just a wonderful couple. I love the actors who played them, and even though the show ended on cliffhanger, I guess you could call it, and they didn't know they were going to end, their arc is very satisfying throughout the whole 3 seasons, and they they get together in the first season. So you get all season 2 and season 3 where you get to see them hang out and, be a couple.
I also like that they're so different. Like
Yeah.
I'm a big sucker for like the gloomy and gloomy sunshine
Me
trope
too, yeah.
where somebody's like really "Meh," and the other one's like hey, and Nico being kind of like the goth one, and Karolina being like the blonde one. I thought that was like a fun dynamic between the two of them.
I agree.
I need to finish again. This whole episode's gonna be like, I need to do this, but I never finished. I never watched seasons 2 and 3, so I need to finish
Oh,
them at
you
some point.
should. It got better
And
than season 1.
I really liked
Yeah.
season 1 too. I just never, so much TV came out, and then I got behind. But good to
You
know
didn't
that.
like you didn't like season 2. Did you watch it, Amy?
No, I didn't. But
okay.
I thought I'd heard that it wasn't great. I don't know. Maybe that was like one of those things in like the grapevine that something got lost in translation.
I definitely like season 2 and season 3 more. Maybe it was season 3 that I liked the most because, again, they kind of collide with each other. I definitely liked them a lot more. And also they ran away after season 1. So.
Season 1, they hadn't even run away yet. I was like watching a show called Runaways, but nobody runs away. All right, Amy, your number 2.
This one is actually very, very close to my number 1. It is Carlos and TK from 911 Lone Star. Carlos and TK are a gay couple in the show. The actors, the actor who plays Carlos is identified as gay. The actor who plays TK is named Roman Rubinstein. And this show allowed him to come to terms with his own bisexuality.
That's cool.
He came out as bisexual after experiencing this show and accepting feelings that he says he, quote, suppressed for as long as he can remember. So I pulled up this interview because I remember reading this and being just floored. He says, I fully identify as bisexual, Rubenstein says. I literally just got goosebumps saying that. It feels so good to talk about it. It feels so good to finally be comfortable. The big thing is where I come from, it's people like me and people who have identified as bisexual or gay or any part of that community are not welcome. So there was a fear of embracing it, but I'm aware of how my feelings are and how I started looking at men and I couldn't talk about it. But then he goes on to talk about how the show itself, not only his chemistry with the main actor and the scenes that he got a chance to explore, but the way that they explored TK coming out as gay in the show. He identified so strongly with that it allowed him to fully embrace his own sexuality. And on top of what is a wonderful storyline, they were will they won't they for a long time.
Ooh,
and then they got engaged, but then the engagement went back and forth. They have some of the best communication that I have ever seen of character relationships. Like if you guys love the Avalance communication, this is almost on par with that. Very open, very honest. Well, my dad doesn't know this, but my dad does. How are we going to talk about this? Where are we going to live? Like it's so good. And then this final season, they got married and they filmed the whole wedding. They did their vows. They did everything. And you're like, oh, sitting there sobbing. Like it was exceptionally well done. And it means so much to so many people. And we have talked about on this podcast how we feel that there isn't as much gay representation as lesbian or bisexual representation in mainstream because of maybe the audience that it's trying to attract. And to have this show be so successful on network television and have this gay couple that they can commit a 7-minute wedding scene, an entire act to their wedding in the finale, including full vows with the backstory of the actors. It's just, it's beautiful. That relationship is stunningly well done. And I hope that people who get a chance to watch the show appreciate it as much as I did.
You're really good at selling these. Like, I'm never gonna watch 911 Lone Star, but like
That's
now
not
Here,
on your
I'll tell you
list.
what. I'm gonna send you the wedding. Hold on.
I was gonna say now I want like a compilation of like the Carlos and TK scenes to like really
so
get me
good.
in there.
Yeah, at one point they even argue about like having a bearded dragon. Like it's just normal shit. Like it's good stuff.
No, I mean,
like how are we gonna have
wouldn't
pets?
argue about that?
Yeah, one's a firefighter, one's a cop. How are they gonna go about that?
Drama.
Drama. No, the show's great.
Okay, so my number 2 is David and Patrick from Schitt's Creek. I love their relationship. It's so funny. It's so sweet. It like really pulls you in. I like the way that they like develop it. They like get to know each other first. Patrick thinks David's ridiculous. David is ridiculous. And I like that the way that they sort of build the relationship up. It doesn't go from them like meeting to like immediately dating or falling in love. Like they get to know each other a little bit first. And some of their romantic moments on the show are just some of the most romantic moments I've seen on TV. Like the Patrick singing the Simply the Best, the cover of the Tina Turner song, and then later on David doing a little dance to it is so cute. And the spoiler alert, the show ends with their wedding, and it's really sweet. And I just really like this relationship. I think it's so fun. And I think, you know, comedies can sometimes like have a little bit more fun with their, you know, with their relationships than dramas, because dramas always have to have some dramatics involved. But like a comedy, like you're really just trying to like move your storylines along and make people laugh. And so, you know, once they get together, we don't have to see like a bunch of drama about David and Patrick. They can just be funny and like try to plan a wedding and like it not go well. And I I think that I mean, Schitt's Creek is such a great show, so funny overall, and they're just like one of my favorite couples. So I had to put them high on the list.
It kind of, the way you're talking about that kind of strikes me as like Ray and Kevin from Brooklyn Nine-Nine. It's just fun.
They're
on my honorable mention.
They're on my honorable mentions. I love, and then in one of the later seasons when they have trouble, like marital trouble, and then you're like, you realize how invested you are in their relationship, and you're like, no, they have to get back together. It's
and we're like, we barely
Kevin.
See Kevin.
Yeah, like
we're committed.
Like Kevin's like basically just an occasional guest star, but like they're so and they're also both so funny and deadpan that like,
oh, it's so good.
Oh,
and they're so opposite. It's great.
Yeah. And I love when you find out that like that Captain Holt is like the bimbo in the relationship.
Yes.
Like he feels that way when they go to see Kevin's like professor friends. That it's so good. Okay,
right.
That brings us down to number one.
I wonder.
Let's just be honest. Let's just say it all at once. Everybody, who's our number one?
Avalance.
Yes.
Wonder why.
Universal, hands down. Avalance.
It's just so easy. And I don't know if it's because we've done the podcast or not, but it's just like there's such a fun, because you kind of have it all. You have the comedy, but then you also have the action. And then honestly, it's a very long relationship, so there's a lot to follow with it. It's a good
happily ever after.
Yeah.
Will they, won't they? Good communication, organic chemistry. I was chatting with one of the girls in my cast from Macbeth, and I was talking about the podcast. I'm like, oh, we used to do, it's for a TV show, Legends of Tomorrow. And she goes, oh, I love that show. She's like, that Avalance relationship's the most organic gay relationship. And I was like,
we are always like saying that.
I love that. Like that's what I said. I was like, we literally did a whole episode and a half on that. We did a 2-part series on that. But it's so easy. It is hands down just some of the best representation you're going to find of anything online.
I mean, I can just think
television.
of like so many episodes and moments with those two, like the IKEA episode where they have to work through all their relationships, or how about the one when they go back to camp and they're like, little camper episode.
Or the like second to last episode where they're seeing their future and their futures did not align and they're going to have a conversation about it. Like the communication, I think that for me was the big kicker, is that not only did it feel organic, but they very clearly were going to have real life conversations and honest communication between these characters.
Yeah, and I like that they built up the relationship. They did like the enemies to lovers thing.
Yep.
But then they also got to like sometimes you'll see that in TV shows and then they still are constantly like snipping at each other or something. But in this case, like once they got together, they were like supportive and communicative and they still had fun and joked around and it wasn't
Co-captains.
boring. They were co-captains. Yeah, I think it's like just truly one of the best relationships that I've seen on like a superhero show in general,
Sure.
but also like just like a really fun one. And I think that they realized that early on. They were like, "Oh, this is like the hinge of our show is going to be Avalance."
Yeah, and you know what? We were all there for it. We were all there for that.
We
hinge.
sure were. We're like, yes,
chick,
Avalance.
and now she's Ava.
I forgot about that.
From the
Wow,
chick to
that
one of
takes
our
me
favorite
back.
characters
Ever. All right.
So good. Okay,
I want to know if you guys want to hear more. We literally have a multi-part episode about Ava. We have multiple multi-part episodes about the Avalance relationship and gay representation in TV and media. So you can find that back in the
link
archives.
that in like our show notes too. We have.
I think we did it during the 2020 hiatus season.
In our forever hiatus, I think
yes,
so.
The 1 year hiatus.
So
if you guys go back
hiatus.
into 2020, it was like July-ish. Okay, who were on your honorable mentions?
Okay, Kat, who were some of your honorable mentions?
Mine was April and Sterling from Teenage Bounty Hunters. Really liked that show.
Oh, I heard that was great, and somehow managed to miss that one.
They're really fun in it. I wish there was more seasons. Danny and Jamie from Bly Manor. I think they're fun.
That was on my list as well. They almost made number 5 just because I've never cried that hard at like the end of a TV show. In general, like we got Mike and I got done with that show and we had something to do afterwards and we were like, do we just cancel? We're like emotionally busted right now. It's The Haunting of Bly Manor. So it's the second season from Hill House. And they're like the main couple and it's a beautiful love story, and then the end is just like crushingly beautiful but also sad, and we were just like sobbing, and I was like we gotta go out after this.
The other one I have is the Paige and Alex from Degrassi. So
they almost
back to the end.
They almost made my list, and then I was like, I don't know the end.
I know, but they had a really fun relationship, and I honestly reason didn't make it just wasn't very long. It's a few episodes long, but it's so good. And then my last one's Heartstoppers. Charlie and Nick from Heartstoppers. It's a really fun, cute show.
I hear that's amazing. I think there's a second
fun.
Season that's coming up sometime soon.
Very soon. It's a very easy show to watch. It's very short, and
this is all music to my ears. I've got like a forever list.
That one I honestly would recommend putting it up higher on your list because again, it'll take you maybe 3 hours to watch.
Oh, that's my favorite kind of show. The one that's
even better.
Immediate.
Yeah, and it's like not too heavy. It's pretty light.
Amy, who were some of your honorable mentions?
Kurt and Blaine, which I mentioned, Ray and Kevin from Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Lexa was on the list for the reasons that you put it on there, not necessarily because of the relationship, but because of the cultural significance. Korasami. So Korra and Asami from
that was hard because I like so much of the relationship that's not in the show. Like I really like the comics and all that. So that's why I didn't put them. I'm like, I don't know if that actually fits as like it is.
That's why it didn't make the list. It just made the honorable mention.
I love Korasami.
And then Harley and Ivy from the animated series.
Why is that not in my top 5? I didn't
know.
Shift everything down. I didn't think about that.
I didn't know why it wasn't. I was like,
maybe my number 3.
That's so funny.
Maybe my number 3.
Yeah, they were in my honorable mentions, and they like Danny and Jamie, they almost made it in, and then I was like, I don't know.
Yeah, I took them out because the relationship, like, it's a good relationship, but the two characters are kind of not. They're not good characters. Like they're bad guys.
I'm
really surprised that it was not on your list. I thought that was going to be number 2.
I didn't think about them. I literally didn't think about them.
Yeah. But yeah, those were my honorable mentions.
Yeah, I think we got a bunch of mine. So Kevin and Captain Holt and Kevin, Danny and Jamie from Bly Manor. I have Harley and Ivy, Alex and Maggie from Supergirl. I wasn't the biggest fan of Alex's other like romances. I thought they were okay, but like they never really knocked me out. But I thought she had great chemistry with Maggie. Yorkie and Kelly from the San Junipero episode of Black Mirror, which we're talking about like we're getting really, really specific. But
Morgan,
yeah.
Why did we not talk about episode 3 of The Last of Us?
Yeah, somehow we missed The Last of Us, which was a beautiful love story, but it was also only one episode out of a TV show. So I kind of went,
that's like
movie.
First place honorable mention right there. That's like if we were to do like top 5 gay episodes.
Yes, gay episodes, San Junipero, and that one from The Last of Us would have been like top of the top. But I was like, I don't know, it's one episode. I had the same concern.
Did you actually think about it?
I did, and I
forgot about it till right
now. I don't know. Willow and Tara from Buffy is just like such.
I thought that was gonna be on yours.
I debated about it, but like at the end of the day, like they had good chemistry, but it wasn't like my absolute favorite. I was trying to pick ones that like I was more emotionally invested in versus ones that I just thought were like huge and like really significant. I mean, I loved Willow and Tara, but like my favorite relationships tend to be like a little bit more spicy, like a little bit more like less like, oh, okay, we're just really supportive and we're really into each other, and more like sometimes we argue. So maybe we're enemies at the beginning. And then speaking of that, I don't know if either of you guys have watched Our Flag Means Death. But
I saw it on a list though.
But Blackbeard and Steed from that show, I would recommend that. His name is Steed Bonnet. He's a gentleman pirate. He's played by Rhys Darby. It is Taika Waititi is Blackbeard. It is so funny, and they managed to do a really good like slow burn relationship between those two men that by the end you're like kiss. Like I think they did a great job on that, and thankfully the show got a second season. There's great queer representation in that overall. There's like a non-binary character who has some like romances as well, and everybody's kind of gay on that ship, so it's really fun. I would recommend. And also it's a half-hour comedy, which is always easier for me to watch than like a long drama or something. But that was my honorable mention list. So very similar actually to both of yours. Like we had like a lot of overlaps on the honorable mentions.
I like that we also all chose not only good relationships, but we did choose to put ones in our top 5 that were culturally significant. For individuals. And I think that for something like this is just as important as like that was a good relationship, but this meant something to someone else. And I think that is a testament to why those relationships were so good and why they make the top 5.
Absolutely, yeah. Like some of these relationships that we talked about, even some of the honorable mention ones, were absolutely huge because they were these relationships that we saw on TV when there really wasn't any queer representation. Like Buffy and Tara were like one of probably like 2 or 3 queer couples that were like on TV at that time, like in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Calzona,
and Calzona was huge. Like, I mean, if we wanted to go to cultural significance, like Modern Family, do I think Cam and Mitchell are a good couple? No. No. But were they hugely, like weirdly, hugely significant to the culture? Like actually, yes. Like,
I honestly think that, and this is weird to say, but I think there's like, I think people that might have been on like the edge of homophobia became less homophobic because of that show.
I think a lot of people talk about Modern Family as being like one of the cultural products that like started to change people's opinions on queer couples and like gay marriage and things like that. So like, yeah, are they my favorite? Would I put them in my top 5? Probably not. But like in terms of cultural significance, like there probably should be in a top 5 because they were like huge.
Honestly, they're probably number 1 because there's just so many people that watch that show.
Oh my God. Yeah, it was huge. It was really huge.
Well, same with Glee. Like I think there was.
But a lot of people our age watch Glee. I think with Modern Family, it was more of like, again, our parents were watching it, or like your grandparents are watching it, like because of what's his face from Married with Children. Like I think a lot of people tuned in because of him.
And I think Yeah, what was really interesting about that was, like, it was a more of like it was like a family show. It was like Modern Family was a show that you would sit down, you would watch with your family, and I
With
think
the Abbott Elementary of
like,
10
yeah, the
years
Avid
ago.
Elementary of now, but, like, yeah, and I think that changed a lot of, people's opinions. They were sitting there watching it with their families. They're like, "Oh, these guys aren't that different from me," and, like, I'm annoyed with with my significant other too, and I have, like, a hard time, like, sleep training my baby. Like, I think it allowed people to see, like, gay couples as just, like, couples who have, like, normal sitcom problems, weirdly enough.
Right.
I don't even think that the creators of the show
Normalized it.
expected that it was gonna be such a big deal, but I think that, like, maybe Cam and Mitchell are, like, one of the most significant queer couples to ever be on TV.
I think they are. I literally can't. I think the only other couple I could think of, I mean, not even couple, but like characters like Ellen, obviously. But I
Yeah.
think people had a very they had a view that was stereotypical of queer people. And then maybe Friends, but like also they weren't the main characters of that
Yeah,
show.
I would say the Friends ones were very stereotypical and, like, in that, like, it was a joke kind of that, like, Ross's ex-wife, like, married a woman. Like, the joke was, "Oh, she's gay." Whereas we got to see Cam and Mitchell just be, like, a regular couple. Yeah, and I
Right.
think
Deal with
Ellen
regular
was
people
huge.
stuff.
Yeah, Ellen was hugely
Yeah.
significant, but, like, her
Maybe
show
the
got
talk
canceled
show.
afterwards
I
because
think
of
the
it.
talk show's more significant than the actual show was.
Yeah, like
The
actual
talk show
Ellen, the
people,
person.
because Ellen, again, obviously we're not talking about who Ellen is now,
Not
but at that
modern Ellen.
time of who we thought Ellen was, like she became the Oprah of television. Like she was, once Oprah ended, Oprah really like passed the baton and like said, "All right, you are now the person that people watch at 4 o'clock." And like I think the talk show did a big deal about queerness in that regard. Again, for better or worse, I don't know. For at least in Ellen's side, I don't know if she's as significant as Oprah, but I think that did more than her sitcom.
Yeah, and I think, like, moving forward, the TV landscape, I think one of the things that has to be better at is, like, showing queer people of color, because one of the things I noticed as I was putting my list together is how, like, exceedingly white it was. Just
Yeah.
like TV, unfortunately.
Well, and that's to my list. The Spartacus couple, both not white. Janai, African American. Carlos, TK, Latino.
That's awesome.
So my list is wonderfully diverse.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I think shows are
really
starting
like
to
it.
be better about that.
Yeah.
But I think they're obviously, like everything, there's still like a really long way to go. Okay, well, this was fun. I
had a great time. This is wonderful.
I think we'll probably do more of these like top lists, because this way we can see it was interesting to see how many were on each other's lists and how many were like I had never even heard of before.
Heard of these, yep.
I was like, oh, what? 911 Lone Star?
I sent you guys the link to the wedding, and so if you're like, you know what, I need some emotional like gut feelings, the vows start about 2 minutes in. And they're good. Like even just right now, I was like, my emotions.
Cry.
So good.
It's gonna have like how I get through work tomorrow. I'm like, okay, love is real. All right, because I felt the same way. Even though the Avalance wedding was in the middle of the weird alien season, I thought the actual wedding itself was great. Like anytime you give me a good wedding with like heartfelt vows, I'm gonna be a sucker for it for sure.
Yep.
Okay,
like
well,
your wedding.
Well, I tried.
To be fair, it was your husband who made me sob. Like you made me cry.
How dare you? My vows were great.
Your vows were great, but Kat knows.
I saw you sobbing the whole entire time, but
Kat's like, no, there was no difference. You were just a watershed the whole time. I was like running out of sleeve to like wipe.
No,
people are like passing me.
Amy's like crying, like love is beautiful.
I promise you that she definitely was crying.
Well, that's really all I wanted from my wedding, was to make a couple people cry, and I got Amy, so I'm good.
She cried for the whole entire audience.
It's true.
I think that's gonna do it for this queer chip countdown, or maybe we can call them like legendary lists or something. I don't know. We're workshopping the name.
Legendary lists.
But we would love it actually if you guys would send us your top 5s, because we would love to know. So you can always tweet us at legends_podcast. You might say, I'm already following that Twitter account. You might not be, is the thing. We decided to we're on a different Twitter account now. Things are fresh and new. So you want to follow at legends_podcast. Make sure you're actually following that. And then tweet us your top 5 lists. You can leave the top 5 list in the comments to this YouTube video, or you can always email your top 5 list at thelegendaryladies@gmail.com. And we'll, the next time we record, we'll read some of your top 5 lists, because I'm wondering how much overlap we have with our listeners. I'm sure Avalance is going to be on all of them, but I'd be interested to know what other ships are on there that we don't even think about. And then you can always find us on the internet. We're the Legendary Ladies Podcast.com if you want to find one of our episodes. Otherwise, we're on all of your favorite podcast platforms. You can also find us on Instagram. We're at the Legendary Ladies, I believe.
Possibly.
It feels right? It feels right that we would be at the Legendary Ladies. And then we are also on TikTok at Legendary Ladies Pod. So you should follow us in all of our various locations and like our stuff and say hello, because we are trying to get out there and doing our best. Oh, we're also on YouTube, as I mentioned. If you prefer a video component to your podcast, you can always watch us on YouTube. We're at youtube.com/ Yeah, we are doing it. YouTube.com/ Legendary Ladies, at the Legendary Ladies. And you can
make it worth it that we are on camera.
It's not always easy for us to be camera ready at the end of the night. Often we're very sleepy. So please watch our videos. It would make us feel better. And then of course, we've mentioned a couple of times, but you can become a Patreon supporter. That comes with bonus content. It also means that you can join us when we record and give your feedback in the live chat. That's patreon.com/ the Legendary Ladies. So I think that was literally all the places you can find us.
All the things.
So Amy, where can people find you on the internets, and what are you up to?
You guys can find me on Instagram, Amy_hip, Amy_hyp. And when are we releasing this episode? What date?
Early July.
I got it. It's July 3rd.
Okay, so at this point, my show will be over. But I
hope you enjoyed it.
I hope it was great. I hope things went well.
For all of you people who came out, Amy says thank you.
Thanks. Kat, what about you?
I also, I'm really trying to think of the dates. I have 2 Kickstarters going on. We have enamel pins for pansexuality, lesbian, and non-binary. They're all cute animals like tigers and turtles and pandas. So go check that out. We also have Slice of Life. If you enjoy gay ships, go check that out. They're gay. They kiss. There's a cheerleader. There's an anime character. You want to read that, don't you? Go check it out.
Of course I do. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Mojotastic, and you can find me as a co-host on Supergirl Radio, where, again, when this is posted, we'll be talking about Supergirl. I think I can make that guaranteed to you, our listeners.
Hope so.
Yeah. So
I wonder if you changed the topic of the podcast in the 2 weeks that
oh my God, that would be so embarrassing for us. Okay, well, I think that's going to do it. Thanks for joining us. And remember to stay legendary.